Today is September 26, 2022. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. I'm having a hard time getting past reporting on the latest coming from the mouth of Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. It seems like she's been in my crosshairs or my radar for the last several times, and I'm just having a hard time getting past her. And hopefully this is going to be the last time. But last week, she was in some sort of panel discussion, and she made a comment that I thought I should just comment on myself. She said that when we were talking about the heartbeat bill in Georgia, that when doctors or nurses hear a heartbeat sound, that the noise they hear is a manufactured sound, basically brought to you by men, well, white men, most likely from her point of view, white men, who are denying women their reproductive right. So first, it's a sexist thing because it's these men that are punishing women, and the second is that it's not a real sound. It's not really there. It's just manufactured. So I'll let that rest, and you can draw your own conclusions, I suppose. But Stacey Abrams does have a way of opening her mouth and perhaps sometimes putting her foot in. So let's move on. You may have heard too that this past, because it's been in the news, this past Friday, a man in outside of Philadelphia was arrested when 25 FBI agents stormed into his house at 7 o'clock in the morning. And the man's name is Mark Houck. He is a father of seven children, and he is a pro-life activist, regularly pickets or prays in front of abortion clinics in the Philadelphia area. And back in September of 2021, so this incident that I'm going to talk about happened 12 months ago, okay? Just think about that. This happened a year ago. He's outside of an abortion clinic, and he has brought with him that morning his 12-year-old son. So they could pray and perhaps talk to women about giving life to their babies or not to have an abortion. Well, a clinic escort, so an abortion clinic employee, came out and approached the boy. And apparently he got in the boy's face. He was using vulgar language, just very much in your face with verbal insults. And the father, this Mark Houck, stepped in to protect his son and told the man to back off from his son. And the man refused. So Mr. Houck, the father, pushed the man away from his son, and the man fell over. Well, apparently the police were called, but they did not press charges. And the man, the clinic employee, did press charges. He filed a complaint. But a judge tossed out the complaint. There was nothing there. Well, a few days later, the U.S. Justice Department contacted Mr. Houck and told him that he was under a federal criminal probe because he had violated the 1994 Freedom of Access to Abortion Clinics. Back in the early 1990s, when Operation Rescue was in its heyday, hundreds, if not thousands, of people were laying siege to clinics, and people were laying limp in front of doors and blocking the entrances. Sometimes clinics would close for a few days. Hundreds of people were being arrested and hauled away, and it was quite successful for a time. But clinic employees or clinic, staffers approached Congress, and Congress passed this bill, the Freedom of Access to Entrances Act to make sure that abortion clinics were employees and patients were free to enter and leave their building. So he's being charged with violating that act because he pushed this employee to the ground. And what's interesting is that the act kind of stipulates that the whole issue is that you're not supposed to block the entrance. Well, this employee was not at the entrance. The clinic was never going to be blocked by this Mr. Houck or his son. So the entrance, the blocking the entrance is never an issue. But he is going to be brought up with charges, at least as of right now, for violating this 1994 law. If, and get this, if convicted of violating this act, he could get the maximum of 11 years in prison and pay a $350,000 fine. Now, the punishment should usually fit the crime. That's kind of how I like to see things in my world. The punishment should fit the crime. And I have a hard time believing that pushing a man over should give him 11 years in prison and a $350,000 fine. I have a hard time believing that's going to happen. But we do seem to have a double standard. You think back in May when the San Melito draft opinion on the Dobbs decision was leaked, and then all of a sudden you had several dozen pro-life or pregnancy care center buildings or facilities or offices vandalized, whether it's a broken window, paint thrown at the building door, a Molotov cocktail thrown in, some fires, generally relatively minor acts of vandalism, but still vandalism nonetheless. And there was one group in particular called Jane's Revenge, who proudly broadcast that they were responsible for several of these acts of vandalism. They said, we're the ones, we did it. There has not been one single arrest of anyone connected with Jane's Revenge in relation to these acts of vandalism directed at pregnancy care centers or pro-life groups. But meantime, you had Justice Brett Kavanaugh was almost going to be assassinated. Nothing's going to probably happen there. The conservative judges in the who voted pro-life in the Jobs decision, their homes were picketed, which is a violation of federal law. No one has been arrested for that. No one at all has been arrested for that. But it is a violation of the law. And it just seems over and over again when a pro-lifer does something that is perhaps borderline or is against the law, they throw the book at him. But if it's a pro-abortion person, nothing happens. Nothing happens at all. So we had another case here in the state of Michigan. Last week, an 83-year-old woman who lives in Lake Odessa, Michigan, near the Hastings area, somewhere between Lansing and Grand Rapids, she was going door to door, passing out this literature, our Proposal 3 literature, vote no on 3, and she got into somewhat of a verbal disagreement with the homeowner. And, I'm not sure how heated it got, but there was a disagreement. She left the home, she was leaving, and someone, not the homeowners, not the person she was speaking with, but someone else, shot her in the shoulder. It was not a serious wound. She was able to drive herself. She is 83, but she drove herself to the police station in Lake Odessa, and they took her to the local hospital where she was treated and released. So a man pushes down an abortion clinic employee, and he could get 11 years. But this woman was shot at. And we'll see what the Michigan State Police do, because apparently no one has been arrested yet, but they are investigating this crime. But I consider shooting somebody a much more serious offense than pushing somebody to the ground. Okay, so we'll follow both of those cases, I'm sure. Now, regarding Proposal 3, just wanted to read with you in the closing minutes here the 100-word summary that you will see on your ballot when you vote in November. The proposed constitutional amendment would establish new individual right to reproductive freedom, including right to make and carry out all decisions about pregnancy, such as prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, contraception, sterilization, abortion, miscarriage management, and infertility. Allow state to regulate abortion after fetal viability, but not prohibit if medically needed to protect a patient's life or physical or mental health. Forbid state discrimination if enforcement of this right. Prohibit prosecution of an individual or a person helping a pregnant individual for exercising rights established by this amendment. And last, invalidate state laws conflicting with this amendment. So regarding the last item here, invalidate state laws. If this thing passes, if Proposal 3 passes, parental consent will not exist anymore. Informed consent will not exist. Clinic regulations, abortion health regulators will not be required to inspect abortion clinics. Partial birth abortion would become legal. And state funding for abortions for welfare recipients will become legal. And there's a whole lot more. There's like 41 laws would be invalidated if this thing passes. So, you got to read like the fine print, so to speak, that, when they say invalidate state laws that conflict with this amendment, yeah, every single pro-life law, including parental consent, will be out the door, out the window, invalidated if this thing passes. And, they talk here that the state can regulate abortion after viability, but not prohibit if medically needed for the patient's life or physical or mental health. Well, what does mental health mean? Well, the Supreme Court already decided what that meant back in Roe v. Wade's companion case, Doe versus Bowen. It's her emotional health, her psychological health, her age, her economic status. There's a lot of things that the courts consider for mental health that would be a loophole in this amendment. So here again, what is the fine print? What does health mean? It means everything and anything. So basically, for a woman's health, we would have abortions up into the 8th or 9th month of pregnancy. And that would not be prosecuted. It would not be prosecuted. Vote no on Proposal 3. It is too dangerous and too extreme. With that, I'll let you go. I will see you next time.